Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for all things giallo, here on The King in Giallo. We are continuing our coverage for the only giallo film from Renato Polselli, Delirium, released in July 1972. In this video, I will give you a condensed version of the full-length overview video, covering only the cast and crew and the plot of the movie. Then I'll transition into the GialliTally. The GialliTally will contain heavy spoilers. Here is Delirium Overview. Delirium, or in Italian, Delirio caldo, which translates as hot delirium, is an Italian production. The film is directed by Renato Polselli, billed as Ralph Brown, who also wrote it. Music is composed by Gianfranco Reverberi. The cast includes Mickey Hargitay as Herbert Lyutak, Rita Calderoni as Marcia Lyutak, Raul Lovecchio, billed as just Raul, as Inspector Edwards, Christa Barrymore as Joaquine, and Christina Perrier as Lolel. The plot follows Dr. Herbert Lyutak, a well-regarded criminal psychologist who regularly works with the police on complex investigations. But behind his polished exterior lies a disturbed mind. He's a violent sexual predator whose private compulsions are escalating beyond his control. After brutally murdering a young woman in a public park, suspicion briefly falls on him, but his reputation and relationship with the force cloud judgment. Inspector Edwards refuses to believe Lyutak could be involved, especially after another killing takes place while Lyutak is in custody. With his innocence seemingly confirmed, he's set free, and the cycle of violence continues. But I digress. On to the GialliTally. Spoilers ahead for those of you who haven't yet seen the film. You've been warned. My prediction for the movie's GialliTally score. In my unscripted review video, I predicted around 800 to 850 points. Well, let's begin the GialliTally portion of the video, beginning, as always, with the previewing cliches. The repeat offenders are 1 point for actor, 3 for writer, 3 for composer, and 5 for director. Rita Calderoni was in The Freedom to Have Wet Wings and A Quiet Place in the Country, 2 points. Marcello Bonini Olas was in, well, there's an uncredited cameo in So Sweet, So Perverse, which I will mention but not count. Besides that, he was in Psych Out for Murder, 1 point. Stefano Opedisano was in Four Flies on Grey Velvet, The Bloodstained Butterfly, The Cat O' Nine Tails, and Death Occurred Last Night, 4 points. Renato Polselli wrote The Freedom to Have Wet Wings and Psych Out for Murder, 6 points. And Gianfranco Reverberi composed for A Black Veil for Lisa, 3 points. Cliché points for the title, Delirium, one-word title, 5 points. First look, 25 points for the Italian director, and 15 points for the movie releasing during the golden age of giallo cinema. And, would you look at that, it is plot o'clock. Forget plot, we've got knees. Giallo leg cam delivers in full effect. 0 names, all thighs. We get our credits, so no points for a cold open. Gratuitous 1970s dancing, 2 points. Our lead ogles at the set of thighs, which I love that we still don't even see her face. Z is for Zoom, 5 points. T is for telephone, 5 points. The girl makes a call. She seems lost, and so Herbert here offers her a ride to the dance club, all while being observed by the barkeep. During the ride, he keeps stealing glances at her legs. First person POV, 5 points. Herbert moves in. Typical 1970s Italian misogyny, woman is groped, 7 points. Y is for yelling, extra points for her being hysterical, and rightfully so, 10 points. He finally lets her out, she runs, and he follows. Foot chase, 5 points. Despite ditching her shoes and doing that horror trope of consistently tripping and spinning in circles rather than just running, she keeps the distance until she tries to climb the waterfall, I guess? Most awkward position ever. He rips her clothes off. N is for nudity. Spoiler alert, extra points for someone being nude during their death. 10 points. She's beaten to death beneath the raging torrent. Cut to detectives looking over the crime scene photos as they relay that this is now the 7th murder this year. So heads up, that's already 6 deaths for the extended Deadpool later. Exposition dumping, 2 points. A phone call summons the detectives to the bar where they speak with the barkeep from before. The man easily identifies Herbert's car. Cut to Herbert walking home as he passes this woman, Joaquine. Heads up, so there is some discrepancies with the names. I think it's because of the international Italian version as well as the US cut. I will be using the Italian names, so the name Marcia is Marzia. The name Joaquine is Joaquine. The name Laurel is Laurel. Continue. Animals featured, pet dog, 2 points. Art featured, 5 points. He tells his wife, Marzia, he's returned to get his cigarettes. She spies on him as he puts something in this chest and locks it, and it is clear that he did not return for cigarettes. L is for lies, 5 points. He leaves. We meet the housekeeper, Laurel, who goes off to bed. Marzia checks the chest, but it is locked. K is for knives, 5 points. Herbert, or Dr. Lyutak, looks over the crime scene photos, but offers little help. F is for fashion, 5 points. Love their shirts. And then check this out. Look at that ascot, not bad. The barkeep walks in and fingers Dr. Lyutak as the man last seen with the dead girl. Cornered, he claims to now recall how he gave her a ride to the club the other night. Marzia finally is inside the chest. She finds an envelope with a wheel? As well as a bloody shirt. The phone rings. It's her husband. He says he is still helping the police and will be home later. Extra points for T is for telephone for the killer making a call. 5 more points. E is for eyeballs. 5 points. Marzia checks on Laurel, who is fast asleep. A random girl alone in a park is approached by an unseen figure on a motorcycle. They stalk closer. She takes refuge in a phone booth and calls for help. Well, she calls the press, who then call the police. R is for reporter, 5 points. The unseen killer pushes inside. G is for gloves. Extra points for the gloves being black, 10 points. Also, these are easily among my favorite giallo gloves. The killer's identity is hidden due to the framing and editing, 2 points. She is strangled with the phone cord just as the phone booth's location is traced. Police arrived too late. Dr. Lyutak is conveniently with them and is able to confirm that this murder is from the same killer. A is for alibi, 5 points. We cut to a police lineup of men found in the area without ID or valid reason. This one claims he was relieving himself. He is questioned about blood on his shirt. Q is for questions, extra points for questions being yelled, 10 points. The man claiming innocence is the parking valet at the dance club. Dr. Lyutak returns home to his wife, who expresses how worried she was about him getting caught up in that murder of the girl found in the park. He assuages anxiety by reminding her of his standing with the police. She professes her undying love for him. I can't even remark on this beat. You just have to watch it.
E dove si accende il tuo amore? Qui o qui? Forse qui.
The maid is smitten. The detectives all seem convinced that the valet whom they just released is guilty, and so Edwards decides to have him tailed. We cut to our first delirious dream sequence. I'll just say it involves Dr. Lyutak, Marzia, Joaquine, Laurel, and a lot of nudity, a bunch of chains, and some sinister laughing. Marzia awakens from her nightmare only to find her husband staring at her. She informs him of her nightmare while guiding his hand to her throat, which does in fact excite him. This is consensual, so no points for choking. Herbert stops, saying he cannot hurt Marzia. She says he can do whatever he wants to her. Herbert hands Marzia an anniversary card, which is read aloud via voiceover. He confesses to having violent tendencies and expressing that she should be free of him to live a happy life. Extra points for Z is for zoom, for a zoom on eyes. 5 more points. The letter reveals that Marzia is still a virgin. Herbert goes to the window and notices a detective outside spying on him. By the way, in the American cut, this is where Dr. Lyutak has a Vietnam flashback. Marzia begs to remain with Herbert, but he protests that it isn't safe. She detests and says she will do anything for him. She seduces him, and he gives in to give it a try. In an awkward montage-like mise-en-scene, the two attempt to connect sexually. Herbert is aggressive, and Marzia is terrified. Necking, 5 points. Herbert grabs an object from a case. I still have no idea what this is, and he rakes it across Marzia's back, scratching her. Let's just do this now. O is for obsession. Extra points for the killer being obsessed. 10 points. And S is for secrets, for Herbert living a secret double life. 5 points. Herbert screams at himself in the mirror. He calls Inspector Edwards and mentions that he has done his own investigation and that he believes the killer will strike tonight at the community pool in 1 hour. In other words, Herbert is going to get himself caught. Marzia walks in and asks if Herbert will be there tonight. He says yes and speaks of his shadow as if it is a different person, one who is sick, whom he has tried and failed to cure, and whom he must stop tonight. Marzia catches on and begs him to stay home tonight because... anybody? Yes, she loves him madly. The detectives are en route. Their bait girl waits alone. From the foliage, we see the valet, whom we've already been told is also being tailed by police as a suspect. The detectives lie in wait. After some time, Herbert appears. He is seen by the cops, but approaches the bait girl as we discover a different woman is also in the area. The detectives assume Dr. Lyutak is compromising their trap. Even the bait girl is relieved to see him. Before he can attack her, however, the other woman is jumped and stabbed by an unseen killer. Extra points for K is for knives, for the blade reflecting the light. 5 more points. The police scramble. The valet takes off. Lyutak and the bait girl are left behind without an audience. The police come upon the dead body of the other woman. Herbert seems convinced that he will kill this bait girl at some point, as his deranged desire seems to bleed through. The cops summon him to the crime scene. The valet arrives at the crime scene as well. Herbert pretends that his sixth sense is being anticipated somehow by the killer. As the valet relays his story of why he is here too, the bait girl notices the knife on the ground and picks it up, hiding it beneath her purse. Evidence seen being hidden, 5 points. The valet points out how Dr. Lyutak is also at the crime scenes as is he, and protests to the police about the existence of a knife when they announce that no such murder weapon was discovered. The bait girl, whose name is Miss Heinrich, calls the Lyutak house and speaks with Marzia. Miss Heinrich tells Marzia to have Herbert call her back for she has something urgent to the case. She confesses finding something of his and wishing to talk to him before she tells the police about it. Inspector Edwards tells Detective Willie about how he observed Miss Heinrich picking up and concealing something which might be evidence. They head over to speak with her at once, after they stop to get some coffee to perk up. The killer arrives outside Miss Heinrich's door and attacks. She is blinded by a flashlight as they push inside. She knocks the phone off the receiver. Meanwhile, the cops finish their stop at the cafe. The killer beats Miss Heinrich with a whip. This goes on for some time. Miss Heinrich gets back to her feet and hides in the bathroom. This only delays the inevitable. The killer bursts inside and begins drowning Miss Heinrich. She is drowned. Bathtub murder scene, 7 points. We watch as the valet frantically runs to a fountain, washes blood off of his hands, and then washes his face. Inside Dr. Lyutak's car, he notices gloves. The same gloves which we saw worn by the unknown killer earlier. Odd clue, 5 points. Herbert tosses them out the window, and we watch an unseen person pick them up. Inspector Edwards and Willie arrive at Miss Heinrich's and find the place a mess. The door is unlocked. The phone is returned to the receiver, and immediately a call comes in. It is Herbert who tells them that he was asked to call Miss Heinrich back immediately, but the line had been busy this whole time. In the bathroom, they find the water still running. Then, they find Miss Heinrich in the windowsill. Willie goes to her, but this sets off a trap, and her body plummets to the ground. By the way, I am not going to count this as someone falling to their death. She's already dead. Back with Herbert, Laurel, and Marzia, the latter has a hallucination of an intense scene. H is for hallucinations, 5 points. The vision, in short, shows Marzia in chains as Laurel and Joaquine roll around on the ground, naked. Eventually, Joaquine frees Marzia from her bonds, and she joins the women on the ground while Herbert is chained up and watches them. Queer characters, bisexual and lesbian, 5 points. Lesbian scene, or orgy, or BDSM scene, 7 points. I could have added that earlier, but I didn't. I don't know why. I don't know, it seems more appropriate here. Inspector Edwards presumes they will solve the killer's identity with forensic evidence in the gloves soon. He asserts that the killer had staged Miss Heinrich's body to appear to fall as a suicide. Had the detectives not entered and disturbed the body, the wind would have eventually caused it to fall. This was staged so the killer can make their escape. I'll add, a murder is faked as a suicide. 5 points. Edwards assumes the killer took the very item of evidence which they had come to inquire about. Willie proposes it could be the gloves, but Edwards says that the killer wouldn't have taken them off in front of their victim and that they likely were worn by Miss Heinrich's killer. Outside the valet's house, Inspector Edwards and the detectives discuss their findings. The valet had rushed home after interrogations last night. The gloves were found near an intersection which resides between here and Miss Heinrich's. Miss Heinrich had died following a phone call to the Lyutak residence around the time the gloves were found. They proceed upstairs to talk to the valet and barge in when they receive no answer. There's no sign of the cot being slept in. They search for places where he could have escaped from. Rooftop scene, 5 points. They determined that the valet had given Detective Richards the slip last night. We cut to the valet and follow him as he sneaks below ground. The wind slams the door shut and he's now trapped in this cellar. It turns out that the gloves are a match for the blood of the girl killed in the start of the film. While trying to find a way out, the valet encounters a woman being cornered by the killer. The woman is Laurel, and she promises to not say anything to anybody about the killer's identity. Now, I'm not positive of what is occurring, but I'm going to guess that this is right on the money. Mutilation of genitals, 15 points. V is for voyeur, 5 points. W is for witness, 5 points. Okay, I usually reserve the points for a voyeur for somebody watching sexual acts, and points for a witness for somebody watching a murder, but this lands square in the middle. The valet sees the killer prepare a gas canister and tries to break in. Driving on a winding road on a mountain setting, 2 points. Trust me, it happens a lot. The valet, whose name is Croqueta, finally breaks in. The police speak with Marzia. Croqueta finds Laurel incapacitated and tries to turn the gas off, but he begins succumbing to it as well. We watch Herbert as he eyes another young woman. Croqueta finds his way out of the dungeon and into the Lyutak house. He looks around and finds a collection of knives. The police leave, and Marzia has a series of flashbacks of her with a past lover, I think, and when she was newly in love with Herbert. Herbert picks up his new young woman and begins telling her about his study into the psychological relationships between students and their teachers. Croqueta tries to open the locked chest and fails. The phone rings. He hangs it up and dials the police. He tells them that he has the murder weapon and has found it exactly where the police dared not to search. They trace the call. Croqueta reveals that his girlfriend, Luzietta, was the girl murdered in the phone booth. He proclaims that he will provide them with the killer in due time. Just then, the line is disconnected. Dr. Lyutak drops off the girl, Florence, but the two agree to meet up later tonight for this survey. Croqueta checks on Laurel in the dungeon, but the door is shut behind him by someone, trapping him down there once again. He states that she's been knocked out with morphine. Character takes sedatives, 5 points. I have to slightly bend a lot of the cliches for this movie, which is kind of cool, kind of annoying. The call has been traced and the police are en route. Joaquine finds Marzia and urges her to come at once. She'd found a man in the cellar and locked him in. This very information we see written on a note left on the front door, which is now read by Herbert. He goes inside, grabs a gun, but removes the bullets. He proceeds downstairs into the cellar, but Croqueta hides. Herbert finds Laurel's unconscious body. Croqueta informs Herbert that she's not dead, insinuating that she will testify against Herbert once she awakens. There's a brief standoff before Croqueta gains the upper hand. He asserts that he saw Herbert driving that girl the night she was murdered. He loses the momentum to Herbert, and the two scuffle. Eventually, Herbert gets the chains wound around Croqueta's neck and chokes him unconscious. The police arrive and take him away. Inspector Edwards mentions they knew he was here because Croqueta had called to taunt them. Oh, well, wait. Someone is taunting the police by phone. 5 points. Outside, Willie tells Inspector Edwards that Croqueta is dead while winking at him. The police ask to return to speak with Laurel when she regains consciousness. Dr. Lyutak gives Laurel something to resuscitate her, then leaves to talk to the police. Joaquine is more than happy to remain behind with Marzia. Back at the station, the police show Herbert the knife found on Croqueta's body, which he identifies as belonging on his desk and being a gift from Miss Heinrich. Edwards asserts this knife was why Miss Heinrich was killed, because it was used to murder the phone booth girl and the hooker in the park. Herbert adds that Croqueta must have tried to sneak the knife back into his home in order to frame him for the murders. Inspector Edwards proclaims that this explains everything and laments being forced to release Croqueta the night of Miss Heinrich's murder. Willie points out that Detective Richards was tailing Croqueta the whole night, but Inspector Edwards reminds him of how they established earlier that Croqueta had given Richards the slip before, and likely did so that night at the park. Edwards says it is all falling into place, and he will finalize the remaining details. We cut to Florence waiting outside. Herbert picks her up. At home, Marzia relays how anxious she is about what Laurel might say when she awakens. Why's that? In the car, Herbert is struggling to keep his impulses under control. He orders Florence to get out and to get away. At home, they tie a cord around Laurel, who seems to enjoy it. Joaquine says that she'd been told that after tourniqueting an individual, you only need to bloodlet 3 drops in order to halt a drug from taking full effect. Sure? Marzia finds it odd that Laurel hasn't awakened yet, and smacks her a few times. The phone rings, but nobody's there. It rings again, but nobody is there. Suddenly, a recording is playing out. Audio recording device, 5 points. Marzia goes downstairs, but the lights go out. Both Marzia and Joaquine, in separate rooms, appear to be attacked by someone in the darkness. We watch as Laurel seems to get out of bed. The chaos ensues. The women seem to be going insane. The lights come back on, and all seems well for now, except the voices are still screaming. Joaquine reveals it all to be a recording that she was playing. She laughs. Suddenly, footsteps squelching closer and closer. In walks Herbert. He asks about Laurel. He checks, and she's missing. Marzia checks for herself and begins going insane. The two eventually get her under control. She is, well, delirious. She runs off and tries to batten down the hatches. This is kind of funny. Detective Willie does his best Ben Shapiro impression. We see Laurel with the police now. They dial the Lyutak house and hand her the phone. At the house, we hear it ring. Marzia answers, screams a bit, hangs up, and informs the others that Laurel is with the police now. Herbert plays coy and says, "Good, more evidence against the valet." Marzia says, "I guess so," and walks defeated upstairs. Herbert calls out to her, but she doesn't respond. He follows her up. She freaks out and bolts to the roof. Rooftop scene leads to a chase. Add 2 more points. Herbert stops Marzia before she can throw herself from the roof and begs her why she is going mad. Joaquine reveals it is because Marzia had sedated Laurel, locked her in the dungeon, and tried to poison her with gas. Marzia laments why Joaquine has unveiled this to Herbert, but she detests that the police have figured it out, and soon everybody will know. Marzia confesses that she did everything because she is so madly in love with Herbert and wanted to save him from being arrested. Well, hidden identity of the killer until the final moments. 5 points. Extra points for S's for secrets, for the killer having an impossible to predict motivation. 5 points. I guess it's not that impossible, but it is still kind of shocking. The police arrive outside. Herbert calls out to them, saying he will let them in, and descends the stairs. Alone on the roof, Joaquine points out that Marzia will solely be arrested according to Laurel's statement. Marzia will never see her beloved ever again. But the truth is, Joaquine was madly in love with Marzia this whole time too. She says Herbert will turn Marzia over to the police, but Joaquine would never allow them to take her. She would sooner they both died together. Joaquine states Herbert is handing Marzia over as they speak, and Marzia did this all to herself because of her love for him, and worse, she made Joaquine her accomplice. Marzia runs down and calls out to Herbert. She confesses to all of the murders because she couldn't dare allow him to hand himself over to the police. She says Laurel had suspected her and then figured it all out from the knife and her bloodied clothes. Herbert, however, denounces Marzia's gesture towards him and condemns her for her crimes. But Joaquine comes to Marzia's defense and begins beating Herbert in the face with a cat-o'-nine-tails. She detests him for dismissing Marzia's love. Marzia tries to stop her. The police try to break in while Inspector Edwards searches for another entrance. Joaquine continues to beat Herbert, who stumbles down into the cellar while Marzia tries to stop Joaquine. Joaquine grabs a halberd and strikes Herbert with the fluke, the beak, the blade. It's the backside, not the axe head. The police try to find a way in. Joaquine wraps a chain around Marzia's neck and chokes her so the police cannot take her alive. Croqueta, not dead, leads the police into the cellar entrance he had found earlier. They find Herbert just as he dies. Extra points for Zias for a zoom on a dead body. 5 more points. The other detectives find the women dead or dying. Joaquine impaled herself with this sort of rake thingy, and Marzia succumbs to her wounds and dies. And since Joaquine became a killer commits suicide. But since this isn't by gunshot or falling, I'll give 3 points. The credits roll. Let's add up some final cliches. Useless police, 2 points. Come on, they didn't solve shit. The killer is killed by someone, 10 points. And someone else is believed to be the killer, 5 points. And that's Delirium. Okay, so I enjoy this movie. This movie is a fever dream. It is really weird, but whereas there's some other over-the-top, bizarre giallo films like In the Folds of the Flesh, this one actually really works. The hysteria, the craziness of it all really works. And yeah, the characters don't make any sense. They're making the dumbest decisions. I still really enjoyed this movie. So what I wanted to talk about that I couldn't mention during the unscripted review because I didn't want to spoil anything was the reveal of the killer. The whole movie, or at least for the first half, I thought the killer was going to be revealed to be the barkeep. Because of the way he was watching Herbert, I assumed he wanted to be a killer too. But then the fact that we never saw him again after like an hour, I was like, okay, it can't be him. And so I was kind of blindsided to the obvious, and the obvious is Marzia. And when you rewatch the movie, it's so obvious because it'll go from a scene of her saying, I love you, Herbert, I will do anything for you, to then the very next scene, her killing someone. So it all kind of makes sense, but you know, I can understand why it's not blatantly obvious for everybody. It wasn't for me, but when the reveal came around, I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I will say that Joaquine being involved too, like that was very left field for me. But again, I guess it is sort of set up, but very subtly. It's a good movie. It's truly bizarre. It is one of a kind. Well, let's segue to the GialliTally cliches for this movie. Post-giallo viewing cliches. The reason for the killing. You know, we have 3 killers by the end, and though I would classify the 2 women's motives as being mental illness, psychopathy, or obsession, I would grant Dr. Herbert Lyutak's motive as the one with the highest amount of points possible. So let's do it. Sexual perversion, 10 points. The reason for the investigation. Despite everything that happens, the police are still the ones conducting this investigation. However, Croqueta, who mostly solves it, is motivated by avenging his girlfriend. So, revenge or obsession due to losing someone to the killer. 10 points. And extra points because amateur detective. 5 points. Bonus points. The style bonus. The movie leaves a puddle for how much style is dripping off of it. It's not as in your face as Lindsay's earlier giallo films are, but the style is all mostly in service of the psychological state of the characters. We have crash zooms, zoom outs, focus racks, unhinged camera movement, POVs, and crazy colored lights during the dreams/hallucination scenes. But it's honestly not over the top. Like I said, Polselli's style is all in service of what he puts on camera. So, out of a maximum of 25 points, I will give Delirium 20 points for its style bonus. Soundtrack.
Come back, hurricane.
Dolores! Vattene! Marzia! Herbert! Herbert!
Yes, 15 points. Bad effects. No bad effects. No points. Final look. Extra points. The Deadpool tallying how many kills and deaths are featured in the film. I break it down as thus: 10 points per kill or death scene for the main Deadpool, plus any stylistic kill multipliers, which we didn't add yet, plus the knife kill bonus. We have the first girl, nearly drowned but ultimately bludgeoned, 15 points. Luzietta, garroted with telephone cord, 13 points. The prostitute, impaled with a knife, 21 points. Miss Heinrich, drowned, 14 points. Dr. Herbert Lyutak, bludgeoned with a halberd, 15 points. Joaquine, impaled with whatever this weapon is, 16 points. And Marzia, strangled with chains, 13 points. Extended Deadpool for those other deaths mentioned but not seen, I'll give 3 points for each. We have the 6 murders which were mentioned by police preceding the first on-screen murder in the movie. Remember? 6 times 3, 18 points. Red herrings for the total number of legitimate suspects in the film. 5 points per legit suspect are awarded. We have Marzia, Joaquine, Laurel, Croqueta, and the barkeep. 25 points for red herrings. Let me stop and say that, yeah, like this one honestly doesn't have a lot of people to assume. There's not that many characters, and I don't think it's going to just be some nameless character that we saw. Like I said, I did think it was going to be the barkeep for a long time, and then I realized that we hadn't seen him forever, so it probably wasn't going to be him. I assume you could think that maybe Inspector Edwards is involved or some of the other detectives, but they're all present during these murders, so it can't really be them. Croqueta, I threw him on there, but like I said in the unscripted review, I never suspected him once as the killer, but I could see some people suspecting him. But yeah, it really is Marzia, Joaquine, or Laurel. And it's really Marzia is the one that it's probably going to be. Flashback sequences, 5 points each. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 35 points for flashbacks. Nudity, I award 5 points for ass, 7 for breasts, and 10 for genitalia. We have breasts and frontal, breasts and frontal, breasts, breasts, breasts and frontal, breasts and frontal, breasts and frontal, breasts, breasts, everything, breasts and ass, everything, 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 breasts and frontal, breasts, 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 and breasts. 265 points for nudity. Ladies and gentlemen, for Delirium, I awarded the film an AZ score of 17 out of 26. With the bonus points for these, we have a modified score total of 135 points. And for the full GialliTally score, I award Delirium a GialliTally score of 839 points, compared to Short Night of Glass Dolls in first with 969 points, What Have You Done to Solange in second with 933 points, and The Case of the Bloody Iris in third with 830 points. Delirium is now the one in third place with 839 points. I predicted around 800 to 850 points, so holy crap, I am again right on it. I mean, I should go buy a lottery card right now. But like I say, these points do not mean a movie is better or worse. Please like this video, share it with your friends if they are horror fans or cinephiles, subscribe to The King and Giallo if you haven't yet, and if you have any questions, thoughts, curiosities, or concerns, leave those below in the comments section and I will get back to you. Give The King and Giallo a follow on Instagram and a like on Facebook. Subscribe to The King and Giallo Patreon to see early access to all the YouTube videos, exclusive video series that can only be found there, and to generally support what I do. Next time on The King and Giallo will be the overview, review, and GialliTally for the one and only Giallo film directed by Demofilo Fidani. AAA Masseuse Good Looking offers her services. I fucking hate that title. Thank you very much for your continued support, and a special thank you to those who support me on Patreon. This is Tanner Leeser for The King and Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
Quella che seguivo io è viva! Fuck off.